Welcome to POPcast,
a Patterns of Power podcast
discussing grammar in the context of the reading-writing connections.
I'm Jeff Anderson.
And I'm Travis Leach, and we're your hosts for today's episode.
And it's going to be on the brain. I'm so excited about this episode. We have with us today one of the people that can talk about the brain. I could just listen to her for hours talk about the brain in education. Her name is Alana Morris, and she's been leading literacy in Texas and abroad for over 33 years. She's taught all levels, elementary through high school. She holds a doctorate in education and literacy from Sam Houston State University. She's got an intense interest in the science of learning and how to best reach special interests of every student, including adult learners. She's coordinator of high school humanities in Spring Branch ISD, and she teaches in the education department at the University of Houston. She's been president of just about every organization there is, and she has a great book called Vocabulary Unplugged, and she's written numerous articles. And if you want to find her, look on Twitter. We'll try to add it to the links, but it's at Morris Alana. So her name is like we're taking roll. Her last name is first. So at MorrisAlana at Morris Alana is her Twitter, and you can find her there, and you're going to want to find her after this because we're going to be talking about the brain. So Alana, tell us about this thing we call mirror neurons. I'm so fascinated with all the things you have to say about mirror neurons.
Yeah, so mirror neurons are actually the last type of brain cell that's been developed. And I shouldn't say last, I should say most recent, because anything can happen, and we'll probably discover more brain cells as technology increases and that type of thing. But in the mid-'80s in Parma, Italy, a group of researchers, they were actually researching Parkinson's disease. And they were exploring what happens biologically and within the brain with grasping patterns, reaching patterns. And in that moment, the researchers, they were using macaque monkeys. You know, they have all the electrodes all over their scalp. And you can imagine how much time it would take to put these electrodes on these macaque monkeys, right? Because they're certainly not going to take these electrodes off and then go and put them back on. So one of the researchers was on his lunch break, and this macaque monkey was just minding his own business, sitting in a chair waiting for the lunch break to end. So the electrodes are all connected, the computer's on. The researcher literally reaches across his desk to grab something that he was eating. It doesn't matter what it was. I don't remember, a banana, it doesn't matter. So reaching for something, and as soon as he reached for that item, the computer and these electrodes go crazy. So they're firing, they're going off, which surprised the researcher. He looks over at the monkey, and the monkey is literally not moving at all. Absolutely sitting perfectly still. But these electrodes are going mad. They're going crazy. And so he really didn't have the epiphany at that very moment as to what was happening, but it spurred the curiosity as to why in the world is this happening. And from that discovery, that moment, he discovered that literally what's happening is when the monkey watched the researcher make this move, the monkey's brain is firing in the exact same way as if he or she, I don't know the gender of the monkey, if he or she were making that move themselves, right? So that was a fascinating discovery. As all of these discoveries happen, and I think this is important as we're having this conversation about the brain and learning, is that there are three layers. There's the neuroscientist, the researcher. Then there's the translator, those folks out there that translate the research, like Eric Jensen, right? Judy Willis, Marilyn Springer, Robert Sylvester. They take these studies and they write about them in a way that most people can understand, right? And some do it far better than others, right? Like Nicholas Carr in The Shallows.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, and then there's my favorite group of people, the practitioners. So they then read these books, these texts, these ideas from the translators, and they put it to practice in various contexts, whether it's in psychology, whether it's at the gym. But we, as educators, we take that research and put it into action in the classroom. So I say that because this Discovery Empowerment Italy, those researchers weren't thinking, wow, I wonder what this has to do with teaching and learning.
That's us.
Right? They didn't have that thought at all. But now we've taken that discovery and we have ongoing curiosities about it. Dr. Ramachandran, some of you may be familiar with him. He is the guru on phantom limbs. And I imagine his curiosity about mirror neurons came from these phantom limbs. But he also calls mirror neurons empathy neurons. Okay? And that's important because it is through this. And let me give you an example. I'm going to use Travis for a second. So let's say I've known Travis for years. I walk into a room and I look over at Travis and I turn to Jeff and I say, wow, Travis is really sad today. He looks really down in the dumps. Well, most of us would think it's because I've seen Travis, I look at his face, I say, wow, he looks sad. But in truth, what's happening neurologically is tightly connected to these mirror neurons. And what's literally happening is I look at Travis, and when I'm seeing Travis, and here comes the empathy neuron part, literally my brain cells are firing in the same way that Travis's brain cells are firing. When I see him like that, I feel his sadness. And then I know he's sad and can use my language to talk about that. But literally, I'm feeling it before I know it. And that's the beauty of the mirror neurons.
And it's the mirror neurons are the ones that are they're like acting like a mirror from whoever I'm looking at. Like when that monkey was looking at the researcher move, then it fired in his head, like all the movement stuff fired in his head. And the same thing with Travis, if he's looking sad or down, and it's like, I don't like immediately actually have that conclusion. My mirror just senses from his frame, and then I kind of line up with him and feel what he's feeling. Wow, mirror neurons.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful, and it's because my brain is firing with Travis. So it's not happening.
Pew, pew.
Yeah, it's not happening in my eyes. It's happening in my brain. And that is what makes me feel it. And there's that empathy. So a couple of examples that are kind of fun to explore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're at the store or at the mall, and somebody has all these packages that are huge. They're trying to carry too much, right? Heavy boxes. And they're trying to get through the door, but the boxes are falling everywhere. You have that sudden sense, that urge to go over and help them. And it's not just because you're a kind person. Your brain is literally firing in the same way that you're feeling what that person's feeling, and that propels you to action. Same thing, you're watching sports and you can literally feel yourself moving. So here the running backs running toward the end zone to make a touchdown, and you can feel yourself moving across and you're trying to go with them because you're feeling what that they're feeling, that intensity. Okay, yeah, you want them to win, but it's more than that. Another example, these are some physiological connections. When somebody yawns, all right?
Yeah, we have to.
Yeah.
I'm not tired, but why am I'm suddenly yawning? Here we go.
You're just saying it, right? So again, that's the mirror neuron system that drives emulation, it drives imitation, and it literally drives empathy. And we're not have time here to go into Ramachandran's work, but he has a terrific TED Talk. And just search mirror neurons and Ramachandran. Even if you get close, it's going to pop up on that spelling. And he has a terrific TED Talk on mirror neurons and talks about, the evolution of this mirror neuron system and how socially connected we are, and that we're literally connected through our skin. And Brunner and many of the other early cognitive psychologists, even though they didn't have MRIs and some of the technology we have now, they were so much ahead of their time in understanding the social connection and learning and the importance of that social connection and learning. And truthfully, Jeff, that's one of the reasons Patterns of Power is so impactful, is that social connection in those processes.
We've even ended up writing an article about how it matches up with SEL education, because it's doing that social emotional learning. It's allowing for that in part because of that conversation that we're talking about. But tell us more, because we know what we do. We know we go through this process, but what other connections do you see?
Yeah, so other connections, and I have a piece, if you would look it up, or if you contact me, I'll send it to you, that I wrote for English in Texas. And looking at, because my curiosity when I came across this, the ideas behind the mirror neuron system, my curiosity is, okay, that's great. How does that impact the teaching and learning in my classroom? Right?
Absolutely.
And started seeing all these connections, like even as a music major, I'm playing saxophone, and you're getting ready to go in for a contest, and you're outside the room. You can't play out loud, right? You can't play your instrument out loud in the hallway because that would disturb everybody. But you sit there and you practice. You just with your hands, you're just practicing. And little did I know at the time, when I would do this all the way through high school and college, literally what I'm doing is my brain is firing in the same way as if I were playing it in that room for the competition out loud. And that's that piece of rehearsing, mental rehearsal, going through it in your head. Even those of us who pre-write, we think about our piece over and over again, we percolate it in our head. That rehearsal is actually using part of that mirror neuron system, because you're emulating. And then the is increased when you write it right on paper. So that's one of the curiosities. How is that connected? But another piece that was curious for me is this piece about emulation. And that if you're doing something and someone else's brain is firing in the same way as you're going through that process, what has emerged from that is the importance of modeling. Not because somebody says, hey, modeling is a good idea. We've known that for a long time with mentor text and with learning a new process and with apprenticeships. We know the importance of modeling instinctually, but now we know biologically, neurologically, why this is so important. It's literally the monkey see, monkey do. So when people try to say, don't do as I do as I say, like it's not really possible, you're going to do what...
We ain't wired that way.
Yeah, you're not wired. You're not wired that way. So the modeling is really important, because your student's brain, their brain is firing in the same way your brain is firing as they watch you go through these processes.
So, for example, when we asked the kids at one point in the Patterns of Power process to imitate, we show them how to imitate first, and we generate ideas together. That while we're doing that, before they get their chance to do this on their own, they're actually rehearsing it mentally with you as you do it, as their peers speak. They're hearing all of that, and that's being mirrored in their own brains and activated in their own brains for possibilities for them when they do their own imitation.
Exactly. So they're making these neurological connections. And remember, brain cells that fire together wire together. And I don't think we yet know enough about it. And I am not a neuroscientist. Right? I do not have a degree in neuroscience. I really do have a degree in curiosity, though, and interest. And I think, the more we read about these things and make the connections, but then what also happens is practitioners who go on to further study at, if they're getting their master's or they're getting their doctoral, or they're going in a doctoral program, these curiosities about these brain cells then lead to work in classrooms that's then going to deepen our understanding about these cells and how they work. But here are a couple of other questions, curiosities, realities with mirror neurons. Another is about rapport. So many of the researchers, those who've been continuing studies, there's this great book. Here's a whole book on the mirror neuron system and studies that have been done. So one of the things that they've discovered is the greater the rapport with the person you're emulating or imitating, right, or mirroring, the stronger the firing of the mirror neuron system. Okay.
So that whole idea of having a safe writing community bodes well for mirror neurons, because I'm going to be able to reflect back to the mirror neurons that I see. If I feel safe, if I feel comfortable, if I feel that rapport, that's going to soak in more, activate my brain more. Well,
Yes.
You've activated my brain so much, Elena, and I can't even believe that we're already kind of coming up on the end of our first episode.
We sure are.
But never fear. Why do they not have to fear, Travis?
Because you can just come back to the next episode and we'll continue.
There you go.
This
So
magic.
So she's told us this magic about mirror neurons, and we'll learn more about mirror neurons and more about some other stuff. But I hear that music, that theme music coming up from behind. What's that mean, Travis?
That means we got to thank our sponsor, Stenhouse Publishers, STENHOUSE.com. Thank you for sponsoring this podcast. And
Thank you to Alana Morris. Alana Morris, who you can find at Morris Elena on Twitter. And come back and listen to us in a couple of weeks. We'll be doing another episode with Elena, talking about patterns of power, talking about brain research, and how it all works together. Thank you, Elena.
All right, we'll talk soon.